Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jai Vishnupad Paramhamsa Parivrajacharya Ashtatarasta Shri Srimad Divine Grace Vaishnava Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Vishnupad Paramhamsa Parivrajacharya Ashtatarasta Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Samavita Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Jai Nitai Gaur Premanande. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Today we're reading from Canto 3, Chapter 31, entitled The Movements of Living Entities, of the Living Entities, text number 31. Tadartam kurute karma, Tadartam kurute karma, Yad baddho yati samsritim, Yad baddho yati samsritim, Yonu yati tatat klesham, No yonu yati tatat klesham, Avidya karma bandhanaha, Avidya karma bandhanaha, Tadartam kurute karma, Yad baddho yati samsritim, Yonu yati tatat klesham, Avidya karma bandhanaha, Tadartam kurute karma, Yad baddho yati samsritim, Yonu yati tatat klesham, Avidya karma bandhanaha, Tadartam kurute karma, Yonu yati tatat klesham, Avidya karma bandhanaha, Tadartam kurute karma, Yad baddho yati samsritim, Yonu yati tatat klesham, Avidya karma bandhanaha, Tadartam kurute karma, Yad baddho yati samsritim, Yonu yati tatat klesham, Avidya karma bandhanaha, Tadartam kurute karma, Yad baddho yati samsritim, Yonu yati tatat klesham, Avidya karma bandhanaha. Tadartam, for the sake of the body, kurute, he performs, karma, actions, yad baddha, bound by which, yati, he goes, samsritim, to repeated birth and death, yaha, which body, anuyati, follows, dadat, giving, klesham, misery, avidya, by ignorance, karma, by fruitive activities, Bandhanaha, the cause of bondage. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. For the sake of the body, which is a source of constant trouble to him, and which follows him, because he is bound by ties of ignorance and fruitive activities, he performs various actions which cause him to be subjected to repeated birth and death. Purport. In Bhagavad Gita, it is said that one has to work to satisfy Yajna or Vishnu. For any work done without the purpose of satisfying the Supreme Personality of Godhead is a cause of bondage. In the conditioned state, a living entity accepting his body as himself forgets his eternal relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead and acts on the interest of his body. He takes the body as himself, his bodily expansions as his kinsman, and the land from which he is born, and the land from which his body is born as worshipable. In this way he performs all sorts of misconceived activities, which lead to his perpetual bondage in repetition of birth and death in various species. In modern civilization, the so-called social, national, and government leaders mislead people more and more under the bodily conception of life, with the result that all the leaders, with their followers, are gliding down to hellish conditions birth after birth. An example is given in Srimad Bhagavatam, Anda yatandeir upaniyamanaha. When a blind man leads several other blind men, the result is that all of them fall down in a ditch. This is actually happening. There are many leaders to lead the ignorant public, but because every one of them is bewildered by the bodily conception of life, there is no peace and prosperity in human society. So-called yogis who perform various bodily feats are also in the same category as such ignorant people, because the Hatha Yoga system is especially recommended for persons who are grossly implicated in the bodily conception. The conclusion is that as long as one is fixed in the bodily conception, he has to suffer birth and death. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadahmayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapatikamadam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deen Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priyam Vansha Kalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhya Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Thank you for coming to Srimad Bhagavatam class this morning. I was listening to a lecture of my Guru Maharaj a couple of days back, and he was mentioning that part of being busy is reading Srila Prabhupada's books and hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. Part of being busy. Not that because we are so busy, we can't read Srila Prabhupada's books or attend Bhagavatam class. So sometimes we have to remember that Srila Prabhupada and his predecessors, such as, for example, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, they spent the best part of the day translating and writing these books for our benefit. Bhaktivinoda Thakur used to write books from 10 o'clock at night to 2 o'clock in the morning. Srila Prabhupada, as we know, he used to sleep 10 or 11 o'clock, wake up at 1 o'clock, and literally in front of a desk with a little lamp next to him, Srila Prabhupada would be translating these books for us. So they spend the best part of the day sacrificing their sleep to write these books for us. So we should not think that we are too busy to read these books, to study these books. And we should not think that while we are reading and studying these books that we are wasting our time. We could be doing something valuable, something more worthwhile. So that's an important point. It's a very simple point to understand, but sometimes we don't think it that way. We think that we're so busy with other services, with other material duties, that we don't have time to read Srila Prabhupada's books. But actually, what is the way that we should think? We should think that reading Srila Prabhupada's books is part of being busy. So it's not a waste of time. So I thought I'd just mention that. It's a nice way to think about it. So in this section of Srimad Bhagavatam, Kapila Muni is giving instructions to his mother Devahuti about adverse fruitive activities, and this chapter, the movement of the living entities. Specifically here, we're talking about the four miseries of material existence, which are Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadi, birth, death, old age, and disease. So these represent the four great problems of material existence. And whenever I talk about these four great problems, I always remember that when I first came to Krishna consciousness, I was attending a Bhakti Shastri class, and my teacher at that time, he told me what these four great problems are characterized by. They have four attributes. Because, you may have a relationship problem, another person may have some financial problem, a third person may have health problems. But are these actually problems as defined by Srimad Bhagavatam? Srimad Bhagavatam defines a problem in three ways. A real problem is something which affects everyone. A real problem is something which nobody wants. And a real problem is something that nobody can stop. Does it make sense? So if someone is suffering for some friendship problem or financial problem, that's specific to him. Another person may not be suffering from such a problem. So that's a relative problem. It's not the absolute problem of the material world. So if you consider these three attributes, a problem is something which affects everyone, a problem is something that nobody wants, and a real problem is something that no one can stop, then we can conclude that it falls under these four things: birth, death, disease, and old age. I remember many, many years back, His Holiness Bhakti Rasayana Sagar Maharaj, he was giving Srimad Bhagavatam class. He always mentions that whenever someone asks him to give Srimad Bhagavatam class, he never refuses. He always takes it as an opportunity to glorify Srimad Bhagavatam. So he sat on the Vyasasana and he started extolling the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam. And he mentioned a very significant point. He said Srimad Bhagavatam, one of the reasons why Srimad Bhagavatam is so glorious is because it talks not only about physical incidents that happened in history thousands and thousands of years ago to devotees or involving devotees. Does that make sense? History is what? History is recounting events, physical, tangible events that happen in history, right? So Srimad Bhagavatam is also telling us events that happened thousands and thousands of years ago involving devotees, like the sacrifice at Naimisharanya, for example. So not only is Srimad Bhagavatam telling us that, but Srimad Bhagavatam is allowing us the inner vision. Srimad Bhagavatam is going inside the minds and the hearts of these devotees thousands of years ago, so that we can understand what they are thinking, what they are feeling. It gets into their mind, so we can understand the inner vision. With normal history, it's very difficult to do. We can understand why someone assassinated someone, or why someone dethroned someone. That's the physical event that happened, but what was actually going in their mind, we can't understand. But Srimad Bhagavatam is coming directly from Krishna. It's compiled by self-realized sages like Vyasadeva, who is empowered by Krishna as a literary incarnation. He is able to tell us what these devotees were thinking. So we can get that inner Shastric vision. For example, when Parikshit Maharaj put the snake around who? Who did Parikshit Maharaj put the snake around? No. Shringi's father. Who is his name? What's his name? Shamika. So Shamika Rishi was sitting there in meditation. Parikshit Maharaj, who for 7 days heard Srimad Bhagavatam without drinking a drop of water, he felt thirsty. And he put the snake, the dead snake, around Shamika Rishi. And then, as we know, Shringi, his son, got angry, cursed Parikshit Maharaj. Then Srimad Bhagavatam gets into the mind of Parikshit Maharaj. We can understand what he's thinking. And Parikshit Maharaj is remorseful. He's a pure devotee of Krishna. And he's feeling guilty. Why did I do that? I should not have done that. In my normal state of mind, I should not have done that. So Srila Prabhupada concludes in those purports that because a devotee doesn't perform ordinarily an action like that, one can understand that this was the providence's will. So Srimad Bhagavatam allows us to come to conclusions like that by allowing us to understand and analyze what's actually going in devotees' minds. So this is one of the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam. Now, how does that relate to this? Well, birth, death, disease, and old age. We mentioned that these are the 4 great problems of material existence. Now, with our senses, with our eyes, we can see that people are dying. People die in horrendous situations. Car crashes, falling off a building, and we see the effects with our eyes. And when we see it, we can see that death is a very horrible thing. And we can appreciate that. We can appreciate that our grandparents, our parents are getting old. They don't look as attractive as they used to. As the body ages, we can realize ourselves that we had desires, and because now the body is aging, it's very difficult for us to fulfill these desires because of old age. The body doesn't cooperate. Just like we may have desire to eat a lot of prasad during a feast, but as the body ages, the digestion slows down. So although the eyes are willing, the stomach can't cope up. So it's difficult. So we can appreciate that. And then we can appreciate diseases as well. We can see people are in hospital, people are suffering. But how do we appreciate the problem of death? Birth. Because we can't see what's happening inside the womb. We can't see what's happening inside the stomach of the mother. I remember long time ago, when my mother was pregnant with my brother. At that time, I was like 5 or 6 years old, and every time she would feel the kicking of the baby in the womb, and then she would call me over, hey, come, feel this, and then I would come and I would feel it, and we would all get excited, right? Isn't that, you see pictures of that, you see videos of that, maybe you've done it yourself, if you have younger brothers or sisters. And then everyone celebrates birth, the miracle of birth, with a baby shower, with a name-giving ceremony. It's a new person coming into the family. But because that suffering is covered and we can't see it, we cannot appreciate what's actually happening there. Yes, the baby is kicking, but read Srimad Bhagavatam, this chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, you can understand that the baby is actually suffering inside. Physically, Srimad Bhagavatam is telling us that the baby is suffering because it's in an arched position for so many months. It's being bitten by so many insects. It suffers because the mother eats salty, pungent, spicy food, which helplessly get assimilated into the baby's body. So in all these ways, the baby is physically suffering. But as I mentioned, the point about Parikshit Maharaj, about how Srimad Bhagavatam gets into his mind, so that we can understand what he was thinking. Here, Kapila Muni, Srimad Bhagavatam is getting into the mind of that baby within the womb. So not only are we understanding the physical suffering of the baby, we're also understanding what the baby is thinking. And the baby is praying. A fortunate soul, when they are placed in such a situation, they are praying to Krishna that by my previous sinful activities, I am now placed in this wretched situation. And they remember the past 100 births, and they pray to the Supreme Personality of Godhead that when I come out, let me serve you, let me never be in such a situation again. So this is the glory of Srimad Bhagavatam. Because before I read this, so when I was a new devotee, sometimes people would ask, so yeah, birth, death, disease, old age, I can understand that death, old age, and disease are problems, but why is birth a problem? Birth is celebrated. And then I used to tell them that birth is a problem because it leads to death. That's true. But why is birth in of itself exclusive, mutually exclusive to death? Why is birth in of itself a problem? My logic was that if something leads to a problem, then that something should be a problem itself. So if birth leads to death, birth should be a problem. Just like if smoking leads to cancer, then smoking is a problem. But here we see why birth itself is a problem. Not because it leads to death, that's true. But birth in of itself, why it is a problem. So Srimad Bhagavatam is giving us that inner vision. And then another point that we can discuss is forgetfulness as well. Just like someone may argue that, yeah, I was in that situation for 7 or 8 months in my mother's womb, but now I can't remember anything. I don't have memory of my suffering. And we read that in Srimad Bhagavatam, some verses back. Yeah? That because the baby is going through, forced by the heirs of parturition, the baby is forced, right, during the birth to come out. And because, Srimad Bhagavatam explains, because of the agony that the baby undergoes, it forgets everything. It forgets the memory that it had while it was within the womb. It forgets. So if I forget, then all good. If I suffered in my previous lifetime in the body of a dog or a tree, I don't remember that, so all good. But is that how we should think? Just because I'm ignorant of my suffering previously, am I now in a good position in this mature world? And Srila Prabhupada would quote often the story of Lord Indra, how his spiritual teacher was Brihaspati, was offended. Brihaspati cursed him to become a pig, to become a hog. So Indra, the king of heaven, took the body of a hog. He comes down and he has a family. He has a wife pig and little children pigs. And they're all living in this pigsty. And then, meanwhile, no one is administering the affairs in heaven. So then Lord Brahma comes down to beseech Indra as a pig to please come back to Swargaloka. We need your guidance, your rulership. And he tells Lord Brahma, who are you? I'm happy in this position. I have my responsibilities here to take care of my little piglets and my family here. This is my home. Don't disturb me. That's our position right now. How Indra was thinking in that pigsty as a pig, currently that is our position. We may think, I have a really nice diet, I'm eating some really tasty food every day, or I have a nice relationship with my boss, with my workers. I'm doing quite well. I have good income. I have good looks. I'm successful in life. when we justify our present material situation as being comfortable, as being favorable, as being good, that's Indra telling Brahma that I'm having a good time here in this pigsty. Now, if we received our spiritual body, if we received our Satchitananda Deha, and we look down from that spiritual body to what we were in this material world, even as a human being, even as a demigod, we would consider it to be deplorable. So what did Brahma do? He was trying again and again to ask Indra to come back to heaven. Finally, he got fed up. He gets his, no, he didn't kill him, well, sort of. He gets his water pot and he sprinkles water on Indra. And Indra, the pig Indra, turns into, he gets his form again as the demigod. And then he looks down at where he was. So from a higher position in the body of a demigod, he looks down at where he was, then he realizes. So while we are in this situation, we don't realize. But when we look down at the material condition of life from a higher position, and that can be from a spiritual body, that can be from a point of spiritual knowledge. If we have high spiritual knowledge, then if we look back at our material life, if we analyze and see this material world and how people are living, how countries are cooperating or not cooperating with each other, then we can lament. Paradukha, dukhi. We can get that vision. So just because we are ignorant and unaware and have forgotten our miseries and our suffering previously in this mature world, we should not consider our situation here in this mature world as being good. Right? So that's one thing. The other thing is that, again, on the theme of forgetfulness, the baby was praying to Krishna in the womb, but then the baby takes birth and then Deva Maya captures the baby. Right? Maya captures the baby. And then the baby loses memory of its prayers to Krishna. So why is that? And we can learn an important lesson from this. That Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that he wants full surrender. Right? Not partial surrender, not fair-weathered surrender, but full surrender. What is the verse from Bhagavad Gita where Krishna demands that? Yubrash Guru. Yes. What is the translation to that verse? Yes, abandon all varieties of dharma and surrender unto me. So Krishna is demanding full surrender, 100% surrender. Elsewhere he says, Ye yatha mam prapadinte, tam sataiva bhajamyam. And then everyone follows my path. Mama vartman vartante manusham parth sarvasha. To the extent that you surrender to Krishna, Krishna will reciprocate with you. So if you want full protection, full sharanagati in that relationship with Krishna, then we should surrender fully to Krishna. So why is it that the baby forgets? Well, yes, the baby in the womb who's able to remember its past 100 births is indeed a pious soul. But let's not forget that the reason why that pious soul is within the womb and stuck in a material body, because that soul still has material desires. That soul is still suffering from the reactions of its past sinful activities. So it's not completely a pure devotee yet. And it's very easy for us to pray to Krishna when we are in a very difficult situation. Yes, we all appreciate that. When we are in a tough situation, an exam, right, or something like that, or book distribution, then we pray to Krishna. So similarly, when the baby is stuck in the womb of its mother in that very precarious situation, it's very easy for the soul to cry out to Krishna and surrender to Krishna. And that's good. But we want to cry out to Krishna not only in a difficult situation, we want to cry out to Krishna in all situations, even good situations. That's the surrender that Krishna is wanting. And we can only do that when the quality of our relationship with Krishna is based on love and not based on fear. If our relationship with Krishna is based on fear and awe and reverence, then we will only remember Krishna, we will only surrender to Krishna, we will only cry out to Krishna when we are in a difficult situation. But if our relationship with Krishna is based on love, then we will cry out to Krishna at all times. Not only difficult times, but also times when everything is happening very nicely. Which is generally when people tend to forget Krishna. So that's the principle. Like Srila Prabhupada says in his purpose to the Bhagavad Gita, that what's the name given to Arjuna that he's conquered sleep and ignorance? Gudakesha, yeah. So in that purport where Srila Prabhupada is talking about Arjuna being Gudakesha, I'm not sure if it's in Bhagavad Gita or maybe someone in Bhagavatam. See, somewhere Prabhupada says that the reason how we can become Gudakesha is by crying for Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada says naturally when tears are coming out of our eyes, we can't sleep. I've tried it during chanting. Sometimes when chanting, you feel sleepy and nothing seems to work. You get some water and you can put some water on your eyes. And immediately by the contact of that water on your eyes, the sleep will go away. So Srila Prabhupada makes the point that because Krishna's devotees in Vrindavan are always crying for Krishna, they can easily give up sleep. They can easily give up eating, sleeping, mating, defending, because they're crying for Krishna. So in the same way, Arjuna is Gudakesha because he's always absorbed in that relationship with Krishna. That's how we get close with Krishna. That's how we become Krishna conscious. We become Krishna conscious, fully Krishna conscious, not Krishna conscious sometimes and sometimes not, by going closer to Radha Gopinath based on love, not based on give and take, not based on some business relationship, not based on material desires, but based on love. The story that comes to my mind is from Indradyumna Maharaj's traveling diary. And I think Maharaj was on a plane, and he explains that on this plane there were, obviously he's Hare Krishna, he's a Vaishnava, but then on this plane there was Mohammedans, there was Christians, people from all different faiths were there on this plane. And that plane, I think they were trying to land the airplane in South Africa somewhere. And sitting next to Indradyumna Maharaj was an atheist. And he looked over at Maharaj and he was chanting japa. And then he smirked at Maharaj and he said, "So, do you actually believe in God?" And Maharaj said, "Yes, I do." And he said, "Do you actually think that you chanting his names, you fingering those beads are actually going to save you?" And Maharaj said, "Yes, I already have experience of that." And he gave examples like 2-3 times in Poland, Sarajevo, and some other places, Amazon, I think it was, traveling in the Amazon. He went, some difficult situation he encountered, and he experienced Krishna's reciprocation. So he explained to him, yes, by chanting the holy names, I've already experienced that Param Vijaya Te Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. And like that, the conversation continued, and basically he was just making fun of this devotion that Maharaj has towards Krishna. So then, the pilot of the plane announced that the plane is going to land, but that we are experiencing very gusty winds, right, towards the ground. So then the plane came to landing, was coming towards landing, and then the wind really picked up near the airport. So much so that it couldn't touch down on the runway. It immediately got lifted up, and it caused a lot of commotion on the airplane. It started to move around, and a lot of loud noises in the cabin and where passengers were sitting. And then immediately, Mar started chanting Hare Krishna. And then a Muslim person that was there loudly yelled out, Allahu Akbar. And a Christian started chanting the names of Christ. And then the airplane went back into the sky because it couldn't land. And this time the atheist, he was like, oh, okay, maybe what these guys are doing is substantial. It makes sense. The airplane came back a second time to try to land again. And the same thing happened. This time Maharaj was chanting even louder. And there was even greater noise and turbulence in the airplane. It couldn't land for a second time. So it went back up again. It flew back up again. And this time Maharaj turned and he looked at that atheist sitting next to him, and he was completely white in fear. Third time, the pilot announced, we're going to come and land, try and land for a third time. If it doesn't work, we're going to go back to where we started from, back to our takeoff point, because we can't land here. So then at that point in time, the atheist, he turns to Maharaj and he says, please tell me, what is that mantra that you are chanting? And Maharaj teaches him. And he says, look, it's a 32-syllable mantra. And he starts teaching him slowly, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Meanwhile, the airplane is coming and it's shaking, and the atheist is getting impatient. I can't learn this whole mantra in this situation. And Maharaj said, okay, just chant Hare Krishna. So he's holding on to his seat, chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And guess what? The airplane lands. Third time, the airplane lands. And it's a very sweet exchange. Maharaj, he gives him his card, he gives him his contact details, and this atheist tells him, yeah, I'll really consider chanting this mantra. And they disembark from the airplane. The point is that we don't want to practice Krishna consciousness like that atheist. It's conditional surrender. We want to be more like Maharaj. Maharaj was already chanting japa in the airplane. And then when the airplane came to land and there was turbulence, he continued chanting his japa. But the atheist only turned to God when he was in difficulty. So we don't want to be like that. And Maharaj, he quoted that famous, not shloka, but famous saying that the soldiers in wartime, they say that there are no atheists in the foxholes or in the trenches. Soldiers, they have trenches underground, and they stand in those trenches, and so a lot of soldiers, they die in those trenches. So there's a saying back from World War II that there are no atheists in the trenches of war, because it's a situation of life and death. And even if you're an atheist, it's very natural to cry out to God, because you're in that precarious situation. So that's on forgetfulness. Srila Prabhupada here is quoting that in Bhagavad Gita is said that one has to work to satisfy Yagya or Vishnu. What verse comes to mind? It's from 3rd chapter of Bhagavad Gita. One has to work to satisfy Vishnu. Do you remember, Manika Prabhu? What is it? Mukta Sangha Samacharam. What is the translation to that verse? Translation. Work has to be done as a sacrifice for Vishnu, otherwise work causes bondage in this material world. Therefore, Asana Kunti, perform your actions for his satisfaction. For by doing so, you'll be free from the reactions, fruit of reactions. So, we need to act for Krishna's pleasure. I was just at this point that Srila Prabhupada is saying that work has to be done for satisfying the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu. Otherwise, it's a source or cause of bondage. So I was reading the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam some time back, and I wrote down a very interesting point that Srila Prabhupada was making. This is basically when Lord Brahma takes birth from the lotus navel of Lord Vishnu, Garbhodaka Shri Vishnu, and then he's sitting there on this lotus flower, and the whole universe is dark. Right? The whole universe is dark, and he's looking around. He's the only living entity in the universe. And he hears this transcendental sound, tapa, tapa, tapa. So Srila Prabhupada writes in Srimad Bhagavatam 297, he says, when Brahma heard the transcendental tapa sound, he tried to find the speaker, but when he was unable to find anyone besides himself, he thought it wise to sit on his lotus feet firmly and give his attention to the execution of penance as he was instructed. Now, there's no greater person in this universe than Lord Brahma. If there's any person in this universe that can be proud, it's Lord Brahma. We all have material parents. Brahma is Swayambhu. He was born directly from Krishna, directly from Vishnu. His body is made of intelligence. He's the smartest living entity. His duration of life is for trillions and trillions of years. So if there's anyone that can be proud and arrogant, it's Lord Brahma. He has that right. He has that position in this mature world. But look at the example that he's setting. He tried to climb down the stem of the lotus to try to understand what is the source of this material manifestation. But he couldn't. He tried to go to the left, to the right, to the north, to the south, and he couldn't understand it. So then what did he do? Did he start experimenting? Did he start hypothesizing? No. He prayed to Krishna. He listened to Krishna's instructions, and he sat in tapasya, and he meditated on Krishna, and he got Krishna's favor. But many times the way we're leading right now, our civilization, is that science is meant to be related to religion, actually. Right? We are meant to use science as an instrument to prove the information in Shastras in an empirical way. Because what is given in the Shastras, right, information, knowledge which is given in the Shastras, is not easily understood by our material senses. Because it's far out knowledge, like Timingala, the Timingala fish, or birds which pick up elephants. They're so big. Now we can't appreciate these things which are given in Shastra with our material senses. So science can be used as an instrument of knowledge to prove the facts which are given in Shastra. But currently, what's happening is we are separating science from the Shastra. Science itself has become a separate religion. And while science is said to be based on facts, a large portion of science is also based on belief and theories. So it itself is a religion in one sense, in the modern sense of the terminology of religion. So science and religion should ideally, at least in Vedic times, it was linked together very nicely. So we should take this example of Brahma, and I'll finish with this point. We should take this example of Brahma, that even though he's so qualified, he's still submissive to the will of Krishna. And he appreciates that I can't understand, even though he has 4 heads, to understand what's happening in all 4 directions. I can't understand what's happening in this mature world. Gyami. Right? Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, when they saw Lord Chaitanya, they said, Gyami. Who am I? I don't know. Even though they were so qualified that they were prime ministers of Bengal. They were learned in the Shastras. They knew 3-4 languages. And when they came in front of Lord Chaitanya with a grass in their mouth, signifying humility, they said, I don't know who I am. Please instruct me. So this is the example that we should follow. of the Goswamis, of Lord Brahma. And by showing that attitude, by sitting in tapasya for 1,000 years, what was the result that Brahma achieved? What happened? What did Brahma see? Do you know? He saw Narayan. He saw Narayan. So Narayan came, personally shook hands with him. He got a handshake from Narayan, and he gave him vision of the absolute truth. Not only did he see Narayan, he saw the goddess of fortune, he saw the gatekeepers into Vaikuntha, he saw the inhabitants of the spiritual world, he saw all the personifications of Krishna's energy in the spiritual world. And he sees the topmost planet, Golok Vrindavan. And therefore he compiles his famous Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. How else is Brahma at the beginning of creation able to speak about Golok Vrindavan? Shriya, Shriya Kanta, Surabhi, Yatrapi, Surya, that every step is a dance, every word is a song, the water tastes like nectar. He's able to say that because Krishna gave him that vision, because of his attitude. And that's the attitude that we should try to cultivate. I'll finish up if there's any comments or questions. Yes, sir. When I said appreciation of birth, I can't remember what. I don't understand that. Can you rephrase it? As it should be appreciated as a problem. But we don't appreciate it as a problem because we don't see what's happening. Whereas with disease, old age, and death, we can see with our eyes, right? The suffering, so we can appreciate it. But because we don't see what's happening inside, we can't appreciate it. So we celebrate it, in fact. Yeah, exactly. It's a precursor to what he can achieve after he takes birth. If the baby is able to pray so intensely and so deeply and in such a detailed way to Krishna while in the womb, you can imagine the potential that that baby has to become a devotee when he actually takes birth and grows up. But my point was that it's, relatively speaking, it's easy to pray to Krishna while we are in that situation. But the baby may be praying like that in the womb, but there's every chance that when that pious soul takes birth in the mature world and gets captured and influenced by Maya, he may forget that. And in fact get degraded. That's why it's dangerous to live in the mature world, because you may be that close to becoming a pure devotee, but then you can fall down again. And yes, the baby is pious, it's a pious living entity, But at the same time, that living entity is tinged with material desires. Otherwise, what's that pious living entity doing in the womb of a mother anyway, in the first place? Does that make sense? 100%. Yeah, it's Krishna's mercy that the babies are able to remember. Why is it praying? It's not praying just like that. The reason why the baby is praying is because Krishna is giving him the memory of his past 100 births. That's why he's praying. As I said, it's a precursor, it's a potential, so that when that living entity takes, look, the reason why they're able to do that is because they've practiced some sort of bhakti, some sort of pious life in their previous lifetime. So generally, it's mentioned neha vikramanashasti tatyavayana vidite swalpam apyasya dharmasya trayate mahatobhaya. Right. So let's get the understanding correct. The reason why they're able to remember Krishna and pray to Krishna is because they've done some pious activity or bhakti activities in their previous life. So when that pious soul takes birth again in this mature world, they will be given an opportunity to continue practicing their Krishna consciousness that they left off in their previous life. But they have every chance to reject that opportunity, being influenced by Maya. So that's the precarious situation. The reason why it's forgetting, Bhagavad mentions, is because of the agony that the baby experiences. And because the baby is not yet a pure devotee, that soul is not yet a pure devotee, if that soul had experience and memory of its past 100 births in this mature world, it would not be able to enjoy its mature life. So Krishna says he's the source of smritir, jnanam, and apohanam. Krishna is the cause of our forgetfulness as well. So it's Krishna's mercy that he allows the conditioned soul to forget its past births in the mature world so that the conditioned soul can continue enjoying in this mature world. Krishna doesn't want to interfere in the desires of the soul. Yep. Okay, last question. You, my Guru Maharaj was mentioning in lecture that when the baby takes birth, those karmic seeds and those impressions as to what the mentality or the nature of the babies, those impressions are stored as seeds. So not like physical seeds, but in the mind, they're stored as like karmic seeds. So that as the body grows, those seeds start to sprout, and the same impressions that you carried in your previous lifetime, they sprout. It's always there. The conditioned soul is never separated from its subtle body. It's just that the subtle body is dormant during a certain initial phase of the pregnancy. And then as Prabhu mentioned, as Bhagavad mentions, the consciousness, it comes alive at a certain stage. But it is never separated from its mind. Because at the time of death, we drop our physical body, but we take our mind with us into the womb of another mother. But it's dormant. Yes. Okay, we'll finish here. Thank you very much. Sriman Bhagavatam ki jai, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai.